We're going to go ahead and call the September meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors to order. Welcome back. Hope everybody had a nice summer, and thank you all for coming to see us at the new location. First time we've been in the West End. There's a very I had not been in this building before. I actually thought the building was on the other side of the transit center. I figured out quickly when I saw where Mark Center Drive was, and the city had signed it, but actually it's interesting to walk over here. So, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair Price.
Here.
Linda Bailey. Randy Collins. Here. Kendall Taylor. Here. Matt Harris. Hillary Moore. Here. Jason Thomas. Present. Barack Tomei.
Here.
Jesse O'Connell.
Here.
Chair Kaplan, you have a forum. Following members are currently absent. Matt Harris and Linda Bailey.
Thank you. And Matt and Linda have both indicated they won't be able to attend tonight's meeting. I wanted to, I see our guest is here on the Zoom. Daryl, hi, welcome. Daryl is with us, and Daryl, I understand you're on vacation right now, so I want to make sure we get you back on vacation shortly. Thank you so much for making some time for us. Those of you who were here at the, I believe it was the June board meeting, we talked about the Adult Day Service Center and a ride that a number of folks who participate in that program were able to take on line 34. Daryl had brought this to the attention of the Commission on Aging, which I also serve on, and I was so intrigued by it because I think it really speaks to the kinds of service we're offering and our ability to be there for members of the community with special needs, that I wanted Daryl to be able to come and talk to us about that directly, because I think it's a really great story. So Daryl, thanks for being with us. And if you don't mind, for those who don't know the Adult Day Service Center, well, first of all, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the Adult Day Service Center, your mission and the population that you serve.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for having me.
So you're on mute.
Huh?
We'll get you on.
At least we can't hear you yet.
I'm not muted though.
Is he muted or do we not have speakers?
This is Caitlin. I can definitely hear him.
Is it coming through the laptop? Or?
No,
Yeah.
but I don't think he was muted.
Yeah, I'm not muted.
Well, Daryl, I apologize. We're in a new space, so this is new setup for us. So we'll see if we can get that.
Yeah, I think it's on his end. He needs to check his audio
I
settings
thought it was just me.
to make sure you have your mics up.
Oh, he can hear us though, because he's poking around and
Yeah,
moving.
it's not.
I don't
You can hear it. You can't hear him.
I don't think it's connected to.
It's not something, Josh, that we need to fix on our end. It's on.
Well, can we, is that Caitlin? Could someone else that's remote just test so we can hear?
Yeah, we were able to hear Caitlin earlier.
Okay.
Oh, I have.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
I can.
Caitlin, we can hear you, right?
Okay, yeah, so Mr. Wesley's audio is coming through for me via Zoom.
Maybe. Maybe it's not.
So even says she can hear him.
Oh.
She can hear him.
Okay, so it's us.
Okay, well, it's on us. Hold on. All right, sit tight. We gotta.
Daryl, we apparently the folks on the Zoom can hear you, just we in the room can't. So we're going to see if we can fix that. Thank you for
Gotcha.
for bearing with us.
It was working. Oh, here we go. Daryl, you want to try saying something for us?
Howdy, folks.
No.
Nothing? Good evening. 1, 2, 3, testing. I must have jinxed it.
Hello?
There we go. We're here.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can hear you now.
All right, so Daryl, we'll start. The question was, tell us a little bit about yourself and about the Adult Day Service Center and who you serve.
Well, I'm Daryl Wesley. I am the program director at the Alexandria Adult Day Services Center. We serve seniors 55 and up with cognitive and physical impairments, some other challenges, physical challenges as well. We have a staff about 5, 3, 4 therapeutic rec staff, a full-time nurse, and myself, and some at-will staff to help us when we're short-staffed. We're operated by the City of Alexandria in the Division of Aging and Adult Services. Most of the people that come, they need some assistance, some monitoring or supervision. We do have folks who do live alone, but because of the village of their caregivers, other family members, and us, it helps them stay safe, that quality of life, and thrive being a home alone. We serve 3 meals a day, activities throughout the day, and of course, like I said, the nurse will check your vital signs, your health and wellness, and being a part of the Office on Aging or the Division of Aging, we have social workers to help with any services or resources you may need. Transportation is available, but as I present to you today, sometimes it's a little challenging because due to staff shortages, it becomes a challenge from time to time. And we use Diamond Transportation. I don't know if you are familiar with Diamond Transportation, because it's a paratransit system contracted by the City of Alexandria. It helps with folks with those physical and cognitive impairments. I think that's it.
Well, thank you, Daryl. So the idea of taking a ride on and you're located at the Lee Center, so which is also
Correct.
the end of line
Yes,
34.
sorry about
So the idea for taking the line 34, tell us about how that kind of came about.
Well, like I said, we were short staffed. The transportation was short staffed of drivers. So we could not go on some of the trips that we had planned. So the therapy direct staff came to me and said, could we ride the DASH system? And first, for me, is always a safety concern. So especially going out of the center when we do outings or day trips. So I had to look at the DASH system very carefully. And they convinced me that DASH has wheelchair accessible. The front of the bus will come down for the wheelchairs or people who have unsteady gaits and stuff. And that the drivers are usually pretty good and welcoming. So they convinced me it would be a safe trip. And at the Lee Center, it stays there for a little while at the Lee Center. It just docks into again. So we don't have to like run for the bus or anything like that. So that's how we got to do this trip one day, just on a whim. And like I said, the driver took care of us. They were the driver was very awesome. And we wanted to see, or the staff wanted to see where other people live throughout the city. So the driver in that route, he can pinpoint, or the other staff will pinpoint where people lived. Each time, I don't know if David heard this on the Commission on Aging, each time a person or tourists board the DASH bus, the seniors, we had nursing students at the time, and the staff will welcome each person who board that bus at each stop with "Welcome to the City of Alexandria." And people will laugh. We're pretty animated, pretty jovial group. And the driver was just really nice and made sure everything was good. And we went on our way. And each time a person would deboard or get off the bus, we don't work for DASH, but for whatever reason, our seniors would say, "Well, thank you for riding DASH today," and we're back. So like I said, they're pretty animated, a lot of fun. Let me see, I'm looking at some notes. Just want to make sure, again, the drivers were awesome. They buckled our folks down, especially the wheelchair. The wheelchairs in the front, and basically everybody just enjoyed their ride. We have incorporated the dash system in our activity planning. Unfortunately, in the summer, it got too hot and the air quality was really bad for our seniors that we couldn't ride. We rode about 2, 3 times, but after a while, we just could not do it any longer. But just to let you know, it is incorporated in our activity planning. So weather permitting, and just depending on the air quality, we will take a dash trip from time to time.
Great. I think it's wonderful to introduce some of your, members of your program to the Dash bus system, and then they may be able to, with their caregivers, to be able to ride it at other times as well. Did you have to do any outreach? You mentioned having to check in terms of the safety and the ability to board wheelchairs and the buses being able to have passengers alight properly. Do you have to contact Dash to facilitate that, or was that something you were just able to observe the workings of the bus when it was parked at the?
Just so the workings of the bus when it's parked, and from time to time at the lease center, the dash operator, since they have to wait, I guess, until their time to go, they'll be at the corner, and they're pretty friendly. And sometimes we'll just chat for a moment, or if they're walking around waiting to start, we'll just chat for a moment. But just observation of the bus going down and make sure the wheelchair is securely seatbelted. And we had enough staff that day with the nursing student to make sure everyone was safe. The ride was very pleasant. The staff told me that the driver was absolutely awesome, like I said earlier. And then he just had a great day.
Did you go all the way to Potomac? I know that route goes to Potomac Yard. Did you go all the way to the shopping center? And
They went to Potomac Yard, and my understanding, because I didn't ride that day, the driver said, well, don't worry, I will take you back. So it was just a trip right back to the lease center.
Carol, thank you for telling us this story. And I think it's great. I understood it had been once, but it sounds like you guys have done this several times. And to also then be able to give people a sense of where it sounds like other program members, you were pointing out where the staff was pointing out where they live within the city if we were passing by their street or their neighborhood. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I just want to point out something that the staff told me, because the drivers were so good, because it's the 2 or 3 times that they rode. I don't know if it's dash training or if it's the drivers themselves are just personable, or both. But if you all can give them some kudos, I can get the names. I had one name, but I forgot because I've just been swamped with work. But I can send that to you, email that to you, David, and just to acknowledge the drivers and stuff and how awesome they are in welcoming people when they ride.
I would think if, I'll ask our general manager, if we know the date and time that they took the bus, we should be able then to figure out who the operator was to.
Yeah, date, time, and if you have a bus number, if you don't have the driver's name.
Oh, okay, all right.
We do take commendations very seriously, so we have a program to recognize every time that we receive a commendation on a driver. So we will certainly be delighted to recognize those individuals.
All right, sounds good. And it's great that it's free as well.
Yeah, Daryl, what I think is great about your story is that, prior to our network redesign, like if you called Dash and asked, can you help us with this activity, we would have probably as travel training or as a, goodwill to another city agency. But now you guys were just able to feed into the existing network, and it worked for, members of the community who have a high level of need. And I think that's what's really great about this story. It shows how well our transit service is working for segments of the community that were not as well served before. And so that's what I love about this. And I love the fact that everyone was so enthusiastic too. And I think that probably brightened all the other commuters and wherever other people were going today to have you guys there. So
well, thank you. And we appreciate you all having just a great system.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for spending some time with us to tell that story. And look forward. I guess I'll see you at the commission in October. So,
All
or you're not if you're on vacation and you're out of town.
I am on vacation again, but I'm.
So thank you for making time for us. It's a great story, and I know our staff really enjoys hearing that as well, because it reflects very well on all the planning efforts that have gone into this, as well as preparing our drivers to be able to work with population that has needs in terms of wheelchairs and other disabilities. So thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, David, for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Let's get back to vacation. Enjoy.
All right, folks. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Darryl.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, well, I'm glad we got to do that and appreciate your indulgence in that. Yeah, really well done. And I think it really speaks to just how well we're serving other segments of the community we might not even have thought about when we were doing the ATV and the new network. So kudos, and hopefully we can get some information on who the drivers were so they can be recognized for their efforts. All right, we're going to move into our public comment period. So I have to get back into reading the habit of reading the statement. We have a public comment policy that was passed by the board in 2022. And so we invite comment, but we read the following statement just to set some ground rules for those who wish to participate. We are about to convene into the public comment period of our meeting. All dashboard meetings include a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting, as we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our riders and community members. The board is here to listen. However, please keep in mind that public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns or questions tonight. We take any concerns and questions seriously and need sufficient time to process and research any issues if need be. Board members will respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. Please note that personnel matters are not a part of the public comment period. However, please know that we take any personnel questions seriously. You are asked to contact Dash administration with any such concerns. We ask that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. Further, we ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. The board will take pre-registered speakers first, and then I will invite others who wish to speak who may not have pre-registered. Future meetings, you may pre-register on the website dashbus.com on the board of directors page. I will now call the first speaker. Please remember each individual speaker is allotted 3 minutes for comment. If you are speaking on behalf of the Neighborhood Civic Association or Unit Owners Association, please identify yourself accordingly, and you may be recognized for up to 5 minutes. Do we have any pre-registered speakers?
Yes, Chris Townsend.
I see Ms. Pound in the room. You are recognized.
Yeah, from here.
I think that's, yeah, we don't have a podium.
Yeah,
So,
we don't.
Yeah, that's fine. All right.
oh, we do. Oh, you have a podium if you'd rather, but I'll see you better if you're over there. So
Thank you, Chair Kaplan. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Chris Townsend, retired now, had one heart attack too many in 44 years out in the field doing trade union work, but I was the union organizer that came up here several times, and then 5 and 4 years ago, when the main group of operators joined the amalgamated transit movement that was 689. So I'm here today just as an interested party. I want to tell a good story. Shortly after we organized up here, and it was quite contentious for any of you that remember it, or it had its controversial aspects. I ran into one of your bus operators at Giant up on Duke Street up the hill. I was given a hug to the extent that I thought I was going to be crushed. Because this worker said to me, thanks to you and this union, I was able to buy a small condo here and I don't have to commute anymore from Centerville. I mean, it was life-changing for them. There were other positive things, and it made me happy for that, and I think it made it worthwhile. That's one of your employees. It's difficult around here, you know, the cost of living, housing. It's, you know, you might remember when we had that organizing drive Amazon, and it just announced that they were coming, and we already had members that were getting rent increase because of that. So it was a very uncertain time. But anyway, I want to thank everybody. That first agreement that was negotiated was a good one. And I suffice to say it was good for all involved. So I'll start with that. Now, in terms of why I'm here tonight, beyond that, when I was trained as a young man and brought into the trade union, I was trained very carefully that there was a triumvirate of evil. Racists, anti-Semites, and anti-labor bigots. Now, venture to say, sadly, I think I come here and I would have to add about 3 more classifications: that anti-immigrant phobes, fascists, whatever else we have out there running around. But I've always kept that promise to myself that when we identify those things, we're going to challenge them. We had, as Mr. Baker and Mr. Kaplan know, and Mr. Carey, who's no longer with us, You know, we had quite a battle because there was a long legacy here, which most of you inherited. It was racist and anti-labor and sexist that went back decades. And that was dealt with. It was contentious, combative at times, but it was dealt with. So all that being summed up, and that's quite a summary.
30 seconds remaining.
When I discovered that, and of course, you all know the Transdev Corporation, the French corporation, has acquired First Trans with a management contract. That brought onto the scene Transdev labor attorney, Mr. James Foster, the McMahon Burger firm, St. Louis. Now, we may not be playing a role with you here directly, but I'm going to ask the board that you should be removed or the Transdev should be told.
Your time is up. Please finish your comments.
If you have a last thought.
Well, I was the ATU International Union Organizing Director, which covered 2 countries, hundreds of campaigns that I ran. Illegal and outrageous and unethical behavior of Mr. Foster was a greater problem for me than all of the other employers put together. Mr. Foster is a racist, an anti-Semite, and an anti-union bigot. He is like this with the so-called right to work committee. He is a Trumpist. We're talking a fairly foul individual here, in my opinion. And I think that it is incumbent upon Dash. I understand you've inherited it when Transdev was able to come on the property for this, but I think this needs to be examined. I'll speak to anyone about what his true record is and continues to be in terms of harassing workers, harassing unions, to an extent that you would be surprised, I believe, to find out. So, Mr. James Foster, McMahon Burger, it's my request for you all to examine this man and ask Transdev to remove him. And finally, if someone wants a real look back or a checkup on how Transdev conducts their affairs, I would be glad to talk. I had
Thank
to
you,
leave
Mr.
strike
Sheldon. You've
down
done
the
well
border
with your
to
time.
strike
Thank
down
you.
Fairfax County, so anyway, time does not allow, but this is not a small matter, and I appreciate the fact that the mechanics did organize last week successfully. And apparently there was not anything going on that needs to be complained about. But when I saw Mr. Foster involved in this thing, I had to come.
All right, Mr. Townsend, thank you. Your time has
Thanks for the
expired.
extra time.
All right, and it's nice to, it has been a few years. I thought that was you when I came in the room and saw you looking across there, but it had been a few years and I wish you well. I hope you're enjoying your retirement. Thank you for coming to see us today. Are there any other?
Just also right here, where
It's fine. Actually, I could see you better over there because I don't have to.
thank you, everyone, Mr. Chair, Baker, Mr. Board. My name is Porter Crumpton. I'm a transportation planner, DDOT across the river. I'm also a regular Line 35 rider that comes today to just wonder if there's if a study can be made into switching the Line 35 northern terminus from Pentagon Terminal to Pentagon City. As I'm sure you all are aware, Line 35 is the busiest and most frequented system. It's busier than the next 2 lines combined. However, taking into account commuting patterns, there's a steep drop off in ridership in terms of destinations, as opposed to the peak period versus off peak and weekend ridership. Fashion center at Pentagon City, Pentagon Road, huge retail commercial destinations for shoppers and workers alike. And notably, rerouting weekend service here will arguably provide more of a benefit for the riders along the corridor than its current terminus on weekends. Moving the bus from Pentagon, at least in my opinion, being mostly neutral move. You maintain the same bus connections, you still have transfers to buses on Columbia Pike. And there's sort of similar precedent for this now, part 42, part 87, go to Pentagon City on the weekends instead of Pentagon. And additionally, a few weekend metro bus routes that do serve Pentagon also have midday or weekday, midday off-peak service and weekend service to Pentagon City as well as Pentagon. This reduces the additional 1 train stop transfer or the fairly dangerous 15-20 minute walk that most people probably don't, which you can make from Pentagon to Pentagon City. You still preserve your metro connections, you still preserve your bus connections, but you also provide like
30 seconds remaining.
Idea of this part, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. I know our director of planning is here and so has heard your comments, and it's something we certainly, as we go through our annual TDP, it's something we will certainly analyze. And you're right, there may be constraints, because since we don't control those bus bays, that may, even if we decide that's something we want to do, that we may be prevented from doing, but I'll ask staff to follow up with you more formally, and thank you for joining us here, and thank you for writing down.
Thank you.
Any other words? Okay. So I will now, as we do, poll the room to see if there's anybody who wishes to be recognized that has not spoken. And if there's anyone on the Zoom who would like to be recognized who is not pre-registered, please do so by raising your hand and staff will alert us. So we'll pause briefly. No, nothing's going up. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment. All right, our general counsel, Mr. Rich, is here to give us some training on FOIA and open meeting rules. So it's been a while. It's nice to see you again.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, appreciate the opportunity to be here today to talk to you about FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. It's an important subject, two reasons. One is it's the law, and it's knowingly and intentionally violated, you can be personally liable. And there are fines, and it's not transit companies fine, it can be your personal fine. Knowingly and intentionally violated. But the other reason it's really more important, it's simply good public policy to have open meetings and open access to information. Those of you like me who've been involved in government over the years, you know that it's generally better when people know what's going on. It just cuts down on rumors, it cuts down on conspiracies, and it just helps make things run better. To have an open, a transparent process. And that should not immediately be done. That's true of families, it's true of businesses, it's just generally true. Transparency is a good policy. Okay, today, the Freedom of Information Act really governs two large sections. One is the open meeting rule, and the other is access to information, access to public records. I'm going to focus on the former, but before I do, I just want to say there is a presumption, there's a legal presumption that all meetings are open to the public. There's a presumption. There's a strong presumption. There's a presumption that if there's a government record, you should make it available if you would ask for it. I mean, that's where we start, is with that presumption that you're supposed to be open and make records available. The first thing we're talking about is the open meetings, and that's where I'm going to, my main focus is going to be, because the access to records issue is largely the staff function. Those three reports and everything have to, I'm going to be dealing with that. But there are some parts that will be important to what we're going to talk about in the open meetings is what is and is not a public meeting. We're going to talk about electronic meetings and remote participation. We're going to talk about the requirements for a meeting and the grounds for closing the meeting. And there are some narrowly defined occasions in which it's appropriate to exclude the general public from a meeting as a private meeting. Okay. What is a meeting? It's basically if three of you are together talking about dash business, that is a public meeting. And it is supposed to be treated as a public meeting. Even if you're not voting, it's still, you're just talking about the public's business, that is still a public meeting. Okay, what's not a meeting? We're talking two board members talking about public, dash business is not a public meeting. You can talk. We can just one-on-one, and that's not a public meeting. It's not a public meeting if there are two board members and a staff member. That's not a public meeting. If there is a meeting of 10 staff members talking about dash business, that is not a public meeting. The public meeting will require for the members, for boards. The three board members going to a Nats game together is not a public meeting if you're not talking about dash business. If you go and talk about dash business, you violate the act. There are other instances where dash business may be discussed generally. I'm thinking about this. The best example is a political event in which you have a bunch of candidates talking about how great dash is or how terrible it is, and board members are there and are listening. If they are off to the side talking about specific dash business, that's what they're meeting. If they're just attending a meeting in which it's described, that's not a public meeting. One of the things that's probably important to you is knowing that emails and text between board members may or may not be a public meeting, depending. If it is one-on-one, I don't think it's a problem. If you're doing it, if you're in a group chat, that's a meeting. You're talking about the dash business. If you're talking with one, if you're emailing with one board member, then that person emails to another board member. That's probably not public meeting. It really depends on how close in time, whether it's like an assembly, or whether it's just how close in time it is. It's tricky. I would avoid it, frankly. But I think I'll just say that. The next thing I want to talk about is this is probably the newest thing that has occurred since our last spoke to y'all, and that's the rules on electronic or telecommunications used in public meetings. The general rule is that meetings have to be in a place with a quorum present. That's a meeting, just like we're doing today. And there are some exceptions. One is if the governor declares an emergency, you can have meetings with a big Zoom call. There's a couple of other instances where telecommunications can come into it. If the board adopts a policy, which I believe y'all have, if you adopt a policy that permits a board member to participate remotely, that is possible in very limited circumstances. The circumstances are if that board member has a temporary or permanent physical disability that inhibits their ability to go to the meeting. That can be a basis for them to participate remotely. Their location does have to be known, although that location does not have to be an open meeting location. It's not if it's their home or the hospital or wherever it might be. Another example is if a family has physical disabilities that require help of the board member. That can also be an example when the both participation is permitted. A third one is if the board member lives more than 60 miles away from the place that you live, that board member can meet the vote. The fourth one is personal meetings. And that usually is people who are on business travel. They are permitted to do it. However, there's another limitation on that category. They can only do it 2 times a year or 25% of your total number of board meetings. If you get 12 times a year, then he or she could meet remotely 3 times. Personally, those other examples are unlimited in terms of time. Okay. So are there any questions about that remote meeting possibility? I assume that y'all have been doing that.
We have policy.
Okay. The other possibility is what they call an all virtual meeting. That is, that's like the Zoom call. In which all the members are dispersed, we're all zooming in. First of all, there has to be a board policy that sets out when it can be done, how it can be done, the limits. It's also something that can only be done. In your case, if you meet 12 times a year, it can only be done 3 times out of a year. I don't think you can do it twice in a row. So you have to spread it out.
We meet 10 times, so I think we are policies twice a year. Is that because we have fewer?
Yeah, but well, if you divide the 10 by 4, you get 2.5, so you round up.
Oh, okay.
So you get a little bit for it.
Okay.
But you can still say less. The couple of things about the all virtual meeting, the remote locations, all do not have to be public. But the other thing is that staff and the public are always permitted to be remote. The rules on open meeting apply to the members, or not to the public. Now, just a quick thing about what is a public meeting and what's required, what's the requirement for the public meeting. They're basically 3 things. There has to be notice to the public of when, where, what the meeting's about. It has to be, the meeting has to be open, and it has to be minutes taken. Now, when we get down to talking about closed meetings in a minute, you don't have to have minutes taken at a closed meeting. But that's a very narrow exception. Now, what are the rules for a closed meeting? Well, first of all, a closed meeting, you can't just have a closed meeting because you've got one topic you want to talk to legal counsel about a lawsuit pending against Dash. And that's the only thing you want to talk about. You can't just call a closed meeting. You have to call an open meeting. And once the open meeting is started, then somebody can make a motion to go into a closed meeting. And so that part that's another way of being open. So people know that it's going on. And so in this motion, basically says what the subject matter is, the purpose of the meeting is, and cites the grounds for having a closed meeting. After that closed meeting is over, then the public goes back in, you're back into open session, you need to do a certification. Certification basically says what you are supposed to do. It says we went into closed session for this purpose. This is the only thing we discussed. We didn't discuss other things, even though they're legitimate. If it's not part of the motion, still you have to stick with the topic. And then if there were any preliminary votes taken in the closed session, which you can always do thing, but it doesn't count. You go back out in the open session, and then somebody makes a formal motion to take some action. So the case, hire somebody, whatever it was about. Then you once you do it, make the vote public, then it's legit. Now, what are the grounds for a closed meeting? The big one is personnel. If there's a personnel matter that you need to address, you can go to a closed meeting and talk about personnel. It's a specific personnel matter. It's not to talk about personnel policy. It's not to talk about. I don't think it's even talk about policy with regard to, whether they have a contract with a labor union. It's not policy. It's a specific personnel matter. That's one Litigation is another example. If you're in a lawsuit, somebody sued Dash because bus driver hit somebody or damaged the property or whatever. You can talk to counsel, you can counsel about that case. And it's usually a discussion of whether to what extent you should settle the case or fight the case. That's what it's about. And so that's what you have your discussion about. There are a couple of areas where if things are discussed in public, it can damage your negotiating position. That is on things like contract awards, for purchasing a lot of buses. You have a discussion with public, it can have a negative impact on the bargaining position. And the same with purchasing real estate. So that's another area where.
Let's give you advice. So when we're talking about this, I think one of the maybe where this comes up more often for us is about the collective bargaining. And so you had indicated whether to have a contract with, you know, part of Dash is not something that is appropriate for an executive session. But can you break that down a little more as to what, so we can figure out, because sometimes I guess we're talking about, oh, you know, there was, for example, mechanics recently voted to join ATU, and so, you know, that we would announce that in open session, I understand, but what would be something we would discuss? Provisions of the contract that would have a budget impact, or can you unpack what's public and what's corporate?
I think in terms of negotiating terms, I think that's legal advice. I think that's you're not in the private counsel for that as to what your position ought to be. I'm not sure about budget implications. That's seems to me to be, well, budget stuff is generally very common.
Well, I guess if you're just debating what your position is going to be in a negotiation, because of, you know, budget certainly would be a driver of that. Those would be executive session things, as I understand.
Yes.
But in terms of, say, if you're talking about, you know, the time and place that you're going to come together and negotiate, you know, if staff is giving us an update on that, that's something that would be discussed in public.
Yes, I mean, just status. Yes, I mean, that's like the fact that you've been sued is not a subject for going into executive session. That's these things are all.
The only things that give away then what your position is going to be out of session would be
Negotiations.
or strategy for a.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing I want to spend just a few minutes on is access to public records. This is people making the request. And what I'm going to talk about is what's a public record, who did request those records, and who did they ask? How is the records request made? What are the permissible responses? The time requirements, exemptions, and enforcement. So, what's a public record? It's any writing, reporting in any form that relates to that activity. It's very broad. That includes not just final documents, it includes drafts, it includes emails, it includes personal notes, handwritten notes. Everything that relates to public business is a public record subject to being disclosed unless there's an exemption that applies. Now, who can request? Any Virginia citizen, resident of Virginia, can make a request. Any person from a newspaper, radio station, TV station, magazine that serves Virginia can make a request. I don't think you have to worry about farmer in Norway. They're gonna have a right request. Probably gonna have to respond. Who is the request made to? Well, it's anybody. It's anybody who is associated with the board member, the staff member. It's anybody. And the obligation of each staff member or board member is to get the matter to the FOIA officer. You're supposed to have an FOI person who's responsible for FOI responses. So that's what you're supposed to do. How do you make a request? You can make it any way you can think of. You can make it formal letter, you can make it an email, you can make it orally. Don't know if you can, probably with smoke signals, that would work. I don't know if it's, but anything that you, meaning you, the board member, or your staff member, believes that somebody is asking for records, that's an FOIA request. And they don't have to use the word FOIA. Doesn't have to appear to say, I'm really interested in results of the, their study that y'all did 5 years ago, and now get a copy of that. Oh, yes, that's the only exceptions. So that gets me to well, before I get to what's the time limit? Basically, it's 5 working days to respond to that FOIA request. Now, what are the time? There's only 5 possible responses to an FOIA request. First one is give them what they asked for. That's the first one. The second one is say, I'm not going to give it to you because there's an exemption or because there's prohibition on giving this information to you or anybody else. The third one is provide in part, deny part. That would usually involve giving them the record, but redacting the part that you believe is subject to a proper exemption. The fourth one is to respond by saying the record doesn't exist, or if it does, I can't find it. And the fifth one is I need more time for any of the 4 reasons. I need 5 days is not enough. I need more time. And you have to explain what the reason is that you need more time. If it's a 1-page piece of paper, it doesn't take more time. Give a piece of paper. If it's looking in a whole bunch of different places in voluminous documents, then you can ask for more time. Normally the request for additional time is an additional 7 days, 7 working days. But depending on who it is, you can always negotiate with the requester for what's needed, even if it's beyond the 12 days. If it's a large request, most of them are reasonable and negotiate that. You can charge what the actual cost of copying. You can't charge for your overhead. You can't charge for your retirement, vacation. You can't get charged for all this other stuff, but you can charge how much it costs to copy the charge. And if it's over, and if you anticipate it being more than $200, you can ask for a payment and basically advance. And then you don't have to provide the information until you money. Now, what records are exempt? Public safety information, certain investigative files, personal, educational information, health information, social service records, proprietary information, and also being exempt. And I've already talked about how FYI is important. I mean, basically, if somebody believes that they should have been given information, should have been an open meeting, they can go forward and seek an injunction or mandates, which is awarded by the court to do a specific act. Have a meeting and have it be open, give them the documents. That's the remedy against the entity. The remedy against you as an individual is a fine. And that's anywhere for the first offense, it's $500,000. For the second offense, it's $2,000 to $5,000. But these things don't happen very often. I'd be happy to answer questions. Yeah.
So I have a question about what records are eligible for FOIA requests. So like in course of business, people like I write a lot of notes when I'm in meetings. Are like my handwritten notes subjects of FOIA requests? And if so, like how long am I required to keep those documents?
They are definitely part of the public record. Now, the question of how long you keep, I have not ever looked into that. I assume that that almost every entity, every public entity that has wire requirements, has some schedule of disposing of full work. Maybe they could, it may depend on what they are. Some they keep and some they don't. I really honestly don't know the answer to that. I can check that out and see if there's a record retention rule. I would assume that there is. Yeah, I mean, even theoretically, your emails and texts are, if they're about public business, are subject to records request. However, I can't imagine if there's a rule that says you have to keep all of your old cell phones available. I just don't think that, I can't imagine if that's the rule. So I think there's probably some sort of record retention time that either an individual has their own record, personal record that could be deemed public records, content. But I just don't know the answer to that. Anything else?
Who is the FOIA, who's the FOIA officer, Dash?
Best position is that word.
I kind of assumed it.
Just, Connie, do you get involved ever in reviewing, FOIA, advising staff on FOIA requests?
Did that a couple of times. I don't even remember what they are. I think it's been a couple of years, I think, since I've been asked anything about. I think one involved a contractor who wanted another contractor's information.
Yeah, they typically center around procurements. It's
what?
Around procurements is where we typically see them when there's a non-award. There is typically an effort to get an understanding of why the non-award. And so we navigate that pretty carefully. Team is pretty good at understanding what's obligated to be released. But in my career, that's 99% of the requests have to do with that. The only other time we've seen them have been union requesting information related to the bargaining unit or proposed bargaining unit, and those are very often released. You know, we don't typically see sort of weird FOIAs about obscure, what did Brandy write, during the board meeting in May of 2020. I'm not saying those don't happen, but that's what we typically see, and we do have a process where we navigate those and to make sure the response is coordinated. That's really what Beth's position does, is coordinate that response and get the information sent over. So
As I recall, that one contractor trying to get information about the other contractor, that was turned on whether or not the one who generally proprietary information is protected. But in the procurement context, if somebody thinks that the information they're submitting to the government with a bid is proprietary, they have to mark it as such. If they haven't marked it as proprietary, then it's, I think we exclude if it's not.
right, and then you have a vendor who says that's all proprietary, every single little bit of this, and so then we have to navigate whether that's actually the case, but that's where a lot of this tends to happen. A lot of it tends to happen around things related to money. This money makes the world go round, so there's a lot of it has to do with something related to money. Yeah.
Anything else?
I got a question of clarity on working days. Does that mean Monday through Friday? Because people work like 7 days a week.
Well,
Like,
it's a working day, so if it's a Saturday or Sunday, those are generally, I guess if y'all work on, if the main office works on them, there's 6 days for it, which I don't do.
No, I think it was open hours of Dash.
Okay.
Even though Dash operates.
Yeah,
here,
they're operating every day.
We're not working at midnight, although our bus operators are, and our maintenance personnel are. There's no administrative staff to be able to be doing that.
It's holidays, don't count it for it. Days, holidays. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
That's fine.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, we're gonna move on to item 5, which is consideration approval of the meeting minutes for June 14th that were included in the packet. Are there any revisions to the minutes as proposed? If not, is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Deputy Secretary Steve, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any absent? Passes unanimously. Move on to board member announcements, reports and business items. So we'll start with the affairs report. I wanted to first, well, a couple of board members I want to acknowledge. And first, I'll start with Brandy Collins, who I don't know if others, she's announced others, but I heard today that Brandy is leaving the city of Alexandria later this month, and therefore will be leaving our board. She's been the city manager's designee to our board, I believe, since late 2020 or early 2021, and it has not.
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you. I know you had been with the city for well over 15 years, and I know you were planning and zoning before going to the housing program manager, and you have brought a lot of great thoughtfulness to our board's discussion. I remember in discussing some of the reordering of line 34, you had a particular planning perspective that you brought to that discussion as to why it was important to have the Fifth Street alignment, and I've appreciated your thoughtfulness. I'm going to miss your work on the strategic planning committee. We're looking forward to having your input on that, but we wish you well. And, we will have a keepsake for you that I confirmed with Beth is on order. We obviously don't have it tonight because of the short notice, but you'll be getting either to your office or your home in a few weeks, and something I hope that you will be able to display and remember fondly your time with us. And as you mentioned that you are a bus rider, I hope you will consider citizen vacancies in the future. Maybe you'll be back on our board. And certainly, Brandy, if you want to say anything, we're happy to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I just appreciate the time I've had on the board, getting to know you guys, and also being able to participate in really critical and important questions around transit in our city. And I think that the work that you guys is doing every day is critical to making sure that Alexandria continues to be a community where people want to live and work and play. And then the major investments that you guys have made in updating the transit routes and the service routes, and also moving to fare free, have been significant improvements to the quality of life for Alexandrians. And it's been a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be part of this board. And I do ride the bus, and I'll continue to do so. I still live in Alexandria, and any way that I can serve this organization, I will continue to do that. I'm a big fan, so thank you.
Very nice to see you. I also want to recognize our colleague Hillary Orr, who I watched sit through a 6.5 hour city council meeting in June on the Duke Street in Motion project. It was really you and Jen Schlesinger was like watching a master class in terms of how you explain, persuade your position. The fact that vote to move forward the design was unanimous, which I certainly wasn't something I think a lot of us expected going into it. I think really speaks to just how much thought and community outreach had gone into that project, and clearly at 2 a.m. you have the support and confidence of our city's elected officials, and I was glad to play a really small part in helping to persuade on that project, but you have done an incredible job, and I hope you got a well-deserved vacation as a result of it.
Thank you.
I also want to thank our staff for having a wonderful event this in August. I know several of you were able to attend. I know Brandy was there, Matt was there. I think I saw you, Jesse, laundering crew, celebrating the 4.5 million riders. I know Josh will have more to say about that. But to me in particular, what I loved about it was that we have the stories from the riders, which I know were in our packet this month, and we're on boards on easels at the event, and that several of our riders and our DAC committee members were really treated as royalty with VIP seats right up in the front, and really were celebrated for what they bring to the system and how they support and sustain us, and how we're helping them to live their best lives. And so well done to everyone who was a part of that. It is a great, we had a really great summer, and a lot of other milestones to update, and I do owe the board cookies. I didn't have time to bake them for this month's meeting, but I'm going to try to bring in my chocolate chip cookie recipe for October. So stay tuned. I think that's all I have for the tours report. So we'll move on to the CNS report.
Okay, thank you. It's nice to see you all for a nice little summer break. I want to start off by just announcing that TNS has a new director, Adriana Castaneda, and she started this week. So I have had the privilege of doing dispenser time with her and work with her, and she's already asking great questions and being really thoughtful. And I know she's looking forward to learning more about Dash. She's gonna meet with Josh and we'll do a tour of the facility. And I'm sure she will probably want to pop in to one of the board meetings, maybe even the next board meeting, to introduce herself to you all. But we're excited to have her on board. The WMATA blue, orange, silver study, I feel like I've been updating this thing for like 3 years. It's just on every packet. But the blue, orange, and silver line study, which did start in 2019, is basically looking at what we could do with the rail system in kind of the long-term 10 to 20 year horizon. And so this summer they released 6 different alternatives that they were looking at, with a kind of a favorite recommendation for the blue line to National Harbor, which is kind of like a blue line loop that would certainly support Alexandria and then continue over to National Harbor. But I bring this up because their Metro is collecting feedback on this. So the feedback is open until I think the end of the month on that. And I put some links in the packet if you all want to go and look at those proposed maps and provide feedback on that project. I wanted to also update on the King and Commonwealth Streetscape and Rail projects. I'm not sure how much we talked about this in June. It seems so far ago, so long ago. But the King Street and Commonwealth rail bridges are being raised, and this is in conjunction with the 4th track project. And as part of that, there is going to be additional space under those rail bridges, likely not space for vehicular lanes because of where the pillars for the WMATA columns, those are not being relocated. But we will be able to improve the bicycle, pedestrian, scooting access to the metro stations, the experience under there. If any of you all have walked on the sidewalks, they are about 3 feet wide and only on one side of the street. And you have to wait for the person on the other side. It's like a game of chicken to get through there, where, you know, in a place where we have so many pedestrians walking, it's an important transit access point. So we are going to be having an open house, and we're coordinating this project with a number of other projects in the area. Of course, the raising of those 2 bridges and that construction work, and then also the VRE station upgrades. This project, we're finally starting construction this month on the King, Callahan, and Russell intersection project, which is a test project. And then there's also an Alex Renew and a stormwater project, all happening right in the same area. So we want to show the public that we are all working together and coordinating so that we can mitigate the impacts. It's going to have impacts when you're raising bridges and tearing up roadways, but we're working together to try and minimize that. And so the open house is one kind of a forum to show the public we are all working together, but 2, to kind of make it easier for the community to come out and hear about all the different projects and ask questions about the ones that are of most interest to them, kind of all at one time, rather than having all these separate meetings. So all of these teams are coordinating really closely on that, but it's an exciting opportunity to really open up that space under the bridges and look at lighting and art and how we can provide better access between VRE and the metro and accessing transit. Now that we finished the King Street Metro parking lot bus loop project, we'll be back at it again with more construction. So Duke Street Transitway, obviously couldn't leave this off. The June 27th, as the chair noted, the city council did approve the concept designs for the Duke Street Transitway. We are continuing to work with the community this fall on a couple of the service roads, so that wasn't fully decided, to really look at how those are going to function. It doesn't impact the transit part of it. It's more along the bicycle, pedestrian, and vehicular access. So we'll be continuing those conversations and then hopefully moving into design of that project really soon. So we'll keep you updated on that project, because important one for the city. And then the West End Transitway, we have been working through a more detailed design on that project as well, and just wanted to let this board know that we are beginning the development of the operations plan for the West End Transitway. So that's really gonna look at like who should operate this on this corridor. Is it Dash? Is it WMATA? Is it some other operator? Looking at peak and off-peak service levels, and kind of how also we coordinate with neighboring routes, and kind of how we're going into, we just had a meeting with Arlington. Are we, where are we going to Arlington? Are they gonna want an additional stop there as well? So that's just kicking off, and again, we'll keep you all posted on that project and how that's progressing. And then lastly, we have a new project that you might have seen some of we're trying to get out a lot of e-news about these projects to start getting community feedback for a number of different initiatives we're working on, but one of the bigger ones is the King Bradley Corridor project. So this is for King Street in front of the Bradley Shopping Center, not to include the crazy complicated intersection there. But we are this corridor where there is transit. There's one of our highest priority missing sidewalks in the city, and there's no good bicycle, scooter access along that corridor. There's also stormwater concerns. So we're kind of all working together, and our first step is really to go out to the community and talk about, what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, and trying to figure out what are the priorities for the area. And if we look at, how redesigning that section of King Street, what might it look like? So that project is kicking off this September. We'll have some pop-ups out there. I know we're going to be at the Dash bus stop chatting with transit riders to see what kind of what they're experiencing, and what we could do to make the situation better for them as well. So I think
What's the timeline, Hillary, for having some draft recommendations for that?
probably by the spring. Yeah, we start outreach in September, October, have some community conversations, and then understand what the priorities are, and move forward with some design. So that is a project where we do have some funding for design, but we do not have any funding for construction yet. So we would have to go out for future grants to construct anything. So we have some time. Any other questions about any of those items? I think I have a couple of the next items as well. So in your packet, you will see an endorsement for an Arlington County grant for the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority 70% fund. So I believe you all submitted a letter of support for the city's applications for our MBTA projects. One of Arlington's projects this year is to expand capacity at the Shirlington Transit Center, which is necessary for increasing service on the West End Transitway. So this is a project that's really important for them, but also for us. And so that's why we wanted to ask this board if they would write a letter of support that Arlington could include in their application for that project. So that's what this letter is about. I believe this is from the chair, but we'll need a motion from the board to endorse this grant.
The only thing, and I think this is just the timing when the draft was prepared, it had the interim director of TNS, which you probably noted to change to the on the CC line to the the new director. But yeah, I had reviewed the letter. It was good to me. Did board members have any questions or comments on that? Yeah. Okay, if not, then we'll take a motion to adopt it.
So moved.
Justice, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? And so I just need to interject before we go on to the next item, because I am required to refuse from item D, because there's a letter that is being sent to the Secretary of Transportation, and so I can't represent the board in communications directly to the federal government. Steve, are you saying refused? And we had an acting chair for this purpose. If you remember, this came up in the spring, Matt Harris, who is absent from this meeting. So we will need to appoint someone to preside over this portion of the meeting since I will basically have to step away from the table, as will Steve. So I'm not saying Murat is also, which I expected, Murat is also going to refuse. So among the remaining board members, would you like to preside over this meeting, Hillary? I think we'll just take a motion then to codify that, and then you would sign the letter on behalf of the, are you able to do that, or?
Yeah, I guess so.
The only other thing I thought of is, because I think you're vice president, also vice president of the Alexandria Transit Company and the bylaws. Josh, I think, is president, so I actually thought if the board approved it, Josh could also sign the letter, but I probably said too much because I need to. So can I have a motion for Hillary Orr to be the acting chair of this portion of the meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Steve.
Second.
Jesse, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, see you later. Vice President.
Right, well, this particular grant is one that the Office of, Department of Planning and Zoning is actually applying for. This is a new grant, I believe it's fairly new, and it's for a pilot program for transit oriented development. It's a planning grant, and this is really to support the planning efforts that are gonna take place with the Duke Street Small Area Plan, which is the next small area plan that the city will undertake after Alex West. And so this provides financial support for planning and analysis and engagement. And as you all know, Duke Street is a primary transit corridor. So this is really, I mean, this development around Duke Street in the small area plan is largely because of the high capacity transit with the Duke Street Transit Way. So we think it makes a great application. And we always need as much operating support as we can find. So this would be the first time that the city would be applying for this particular grant. There are a couple tweaks to the letter that we might make in terms of who's it's addressed to, and adding a little bit more language on kind of regarding Duke Street and focusing a little bit more on transit. But if everyone's okay with those tweaks, we could take a motion to support the letter with those tweaks.
So are you talking about changing the addressee to the Administrator Fernandez?
Yes.
Because that was one of my questions. I was like, that's a good, like,
Yeah.
Okay. I support that.
Hillary, I move to finalize the letter with the tweaks as directed, and then submit the letter to the Department of Transportation.
On favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? And then, are they abstentions technically?
They're recusals, right?
Recusals.
Is that how we know them?
Second.
Yeah. Right. But in the past, did we note them as recusals? Did we note them as in the past?
Yes,
yes.
And they did not.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
From.
Come back.
Great job, Hillary.
30 seconds. Of...
Sure. Other people to be in charge.
Yeah. I think Murat's scurried, so he may be back at some point.
Well, we're on item
Okay.
6E.
All right. Updates from other board members who serve on commissions or groups of things that would be beneficial for the group. Any
Yeah.
addition?
ATC, the Alexandria Tutoring Resource Fund, we're recruiting volunteers again. So if anyone wants to tutor kids and help them learn how to read, we're going to be expanding to all 14 public elementary schools this school year. You'll get trained and you'll help a kindergartner, first grader, or second grader learn how to read. So please go to our website, alexandriatutors.org, and sign up if you're interested and have like an hour a week to volunteer.
Does it happen after school?
Yep, it's all in the school.
Thank you. All right, move on to general manager's report.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, welcome back from the summer recess. If you're anything like me, there was no summer, it felt like it just flew by. despite even taking vacations, which were great, it never seemed to slow down. But here we are. So I want to start before I get my report with a couple of recognitions. First, I want to welcome a new team member to Dash, Brent Reuter, who is right here, raising his hand. Brent joined us 2 weeks ago. Thank you. As our new director of training. And you may recall that this position has been vacant for a long time, and Stephanie has been pulling double duty, and we've been for over a year. But we're so excited to have Brent here. And Brent joins us most recently. You were at WMATA in bus operations, but prior to that, you followed Cato up. Well, Cato followed you up here, I guess, from Charlottesville. Stephanie, I hold it against both of them that they went to UVA and that they're not Hokies. But we have cried about it and gotten over it. And Martin is also UVA, so I don't know what's going on here. Something's happening. I don't like it. But we're still happy to have you, and we're excited for what he's going to do for us and how he's going to help us continue to move our training program forward and really build that. The second thing I wanted to mention, face and name very familiar to you, which you already know, but I want to publicly notate, is Martin Barna, who is a celebrity now in mass transit's 40 under 40. 40 under 40 is an annual recognition of the top 40 professionals in transit throughout the country and probably Canada as well. I'm not sure, but certainly mass transit has a huge audience. It is a monthly publication with other spinoffs, and it is a highly selective process. I will tell you that it is very, very competitive. So the recognition to be selected for that is really admirable. So we congratulate you, Martin, and we recognize your successes and what you've done, and we're glad that that's now being seen on a national level. So if anybody wants to see the magazine, I have it here. I'll figure out where he is, where you can find him, and leave the page open to Martin.
Well, and Josh, you know, you're obligated to get about 200 copies of these, and periodically you leave them throughout the office over the next 12 months. Like you can never stop doing it.
Right.
Blow up the
Right,
page with the
exactly.
space on it.
Right. We submitted the picture of him, so we have that picture. We can pull that picture up. But anyway, we're really happy for you, Martin. So, that slide is wrong, but ignore that slide, follow what's in the agenda, and I apologize for that today. So first item here, as previously mentioned by one of our speakers, we have recognized the maintenance department has elected to join the ATU, Local 689. They took a vote on September the 8th, voting in favor, and so we're looking forward to working together to establish a new CBA. I will note that the whole election process was super smooth. We really enjoyed working with the folks at ATU. They were very good to work with and complimentary of us, and we were complimentary of them. And so we're certainly excited to get a new agreement in place representing our maintenance team. The second item here is the Proterra bankruptcy update. This I want to draw your attention to because I think it's something that we're watching closely, and we're a little unsure as to exactly how this is going to shake out. But Proterra has been one of the electric bus manufacturers, and we operate a fleet of 7 Proterra electric buses here at Dash. They did declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy. We also have some chargers by them. I've included the content of what we've heard from them, and that's really the extent of what we've heard from them. At this point, they're continuing to operate under Chapter 11. We don't really know what's going to shake out next. I will be candid in saying that in my time in transit, I've seen a lot of bus manufacturers come and go. So it's not totally abnormal. It's not something Dash hasn't dealt with in the past. We used to have Orion buses. They're now defunct. We've had Nabby, who's now defunct. But we're looking at that. We do have a bus order right now with New Flyer. In fact, Lou Qualia here is our rep. You've met Lou before, and pops through and keeps up with us, and we appreciate his support. And they are continuing to deliver their vehicles for us, so we're happy for that. We're gonna continue to look as we move forward with our Lono project. We will not be considering Proterra, obviously, for obvious reasons. Our big concern right now is making sure that we follow this to understand how the vehicles are gonna be supported. I would not say it's been smooth going. We're doing our best to keep the vehicles on the road, but it has been a challenge. So the other thing we're talking about internally is how do we build some contingency? This is a small portion of our fleet, although it is half of our electric fleet. So half of our electric fleet is Proterra, the other half is New Fire. Typically with these things, either they will restructure, I suspect they will exit the bus building business. This is all my theorizing, this is not fact. And they will probably spin off and maybe produce batteries, I don't know. But what we've seen in the past with manufacturers that go under is that either another manufacturer buys them and then begins to support the product. And integrates that into theirs, or they spin off into a different organizational structure and continue to operate it. So I'll keep you all updated. And I just wanted to let you know that we're thinking about how to build for that contingency. We're fortunate that our strategy was to not put all our eggs in the basket. And this is one of those reasons, things that are new. You just don't know what's going to happen. So. Any questions on that? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, quick question. What funding was used to procure those Proterras? Do you remember?
So the first round of funding was Volkswagen diesel trust mitigation funding. Okay. And that was a small batch, and then the rest was NVTA, local funds. There were no federal funds used in any of the electric buses we operate today or the chargers. As I mentioned, we have a big Lono award, which is exciting for us. And that will be the next round of electric buses. The buses that actually next month, I think we're going to be going up that Lou at New Flyer has been working for getting produced for us are diesels. They're not electrics. So we don't have any electrics in the pipeline at this point.
The reason I asked is like there's some protection, when it's through federal.
Right.
And all that, right. So that's why I was hoping like you probably.
Proterras, there's a lot of them out there. I mean, DC Circulator, for example, I think they kind of went all in. They have a lot of Proterras. So I know we've got a DC guy over here, so they're probably also having the same heartburn we're having. But I think the good news is that it's not that obscure that somehow this is going to have to be supported.
Something we had talked about on our call about flexibility to maintain some of our older buses that are still in good working order, because we may over time then experience some delays in terms of being able to fill future orders that are electric.
Well, capacity issues are a big problem right now. And Lou probably wishes he wasn't sitting in the room right now when I say this, but they're all having a really hard time with this, and I think it's a problem. It's a real big problem that all the manufacturers are facing. Obviously, New Flyer is the largest in North America, but you also see the same issues with Billig and all the others that are building buses. Between the backup of parts, the boards, the chips, who knows, the production process is so weird now. And then you've got all this money, all this federal money pouring into infrastructure. You've got all of this money now to get buses and to move to electric, and manufacturers are still. So there's actually been some dialogue. And I mentioned to you, I think, Chair Kaplan, that I serve as the Virginia delegate for the Canadian Transportation Association of America. And we had a long phone conference about this, all the delegates talking about strategies to work with FTA and other partners to help figure out how do we all as an industry as a whole, because although we're the customer and supplier are working very closely and interwoven, how do we figure out ways to mitigate this backlog and make it possible to fulfill these orders? But this adds strain for sure, because here goes an electric manufacturer. So. See. But I'll keep you updated on that, just like, you know, with the previous mentioned item on the negotiations. I'll keep you updated on all these items, as they move forward. DRPT compliance review, the next item here, every 3 years, DRPT conducts a standard compliance review to make sure that we've materially complied with the various agreements and policies and procedures. Because we do receive DRPT controlled funding typically in the form of grants. The review was completed and we were found to materially comply. We did have 3 instances of non-compliance. That entire report has been attached to the packet. We have already submitted corrective action plans, and I believe that would, correct me if I'm wrong, one of them is already, one of the items is already removed. It was a maintenance related item that was just a records issue. It was not what they had originally found. That was related to a mileage trigger for preventive maintenance on a vehicle. So pleased with the team. I want to thank Edward. He was the primary working on the response to this. It went smoothly and we've been able to put those corrections in place. 3 years ago, we had some repeat findings. Those repeat findings are no longer repeat findings, and that's important, as we all know. Any questions on that? And then the last item here I have is this last couple items, the summer updates. Again, a nod to the team, particularly Martin and his team, putting together this celebration of 4.5 million riders. This was really monumental for us, and we're going to be heading into the spring celebrating our 40th. You better come back for that in March. But really successful in seeing that, and we were happy about that event and what went into that. The last item there, I'm not going to read through these, but as I typically do in September, I like to take an opportunity to give you all a little reflection of what's going on inside Dash, what the departments are accomplishing, what are the things that they've been working on, and what are their successes. We don't often go at that level from an altitude perspective, so I thought it was helpful to give you all some insight. Again, proud of the team for what they've been doing. Each director, department director, many of them you see here at the meeting are responsible for helping to identify these priorities and accomplishments, talk about them, and share them with each other to understand our successes. So, before I wrap up my report, I will ask Marat to help me explain this group, but we're excited to be hosting a group from FTA October 26th. And Marat had reached out, and I want to thank you for helping to make those connections to this team to give a tour of Dash and what we're doing and talk about things. But did you want to help me explain a little bit about
I mean, that's
who the group is, I guess.
The group is the primarily research folks from the FDA. And they're also the same group that has the loan funding and all that
right
under their portfolio. And they were in the lookout for an opportunity to see a facility, like how it works and all that. And you know, I offered them the opportunity. I was like, you know, I'll talk with the folks at Dash and see if we can host you guys. Maybe their plan is to have a tour and then maybe have a staff meeting, ask questions about, you know, how does this work? Probably electric vehicles, how does that work? And automated, you know, bus, any plans from Dash and all that other stuff. So that's probably going to be one of the topics. And then probably like that, I don't know, you were going to plan it, but we're going to have pizza or something like that. So if anybody has time, October 26th between, I think we said 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. For the tour. Yeah. So if anybody's interested, just, you know, join us, get to know them, ask them questions about what they do and all that other stuff, or maybe just ask some questions.
We're really happy to always facilitate these kind of discussions and to be a leader in this. That would also, before I wrap up, one thing that wasn't mentioned in here, and I know Ray may be able to answer any question about this. So we've started a pilot implementation of charge management. As you all know, we received some grants from the state, which we're really excited about, that have to do with the strategy of charge management. It's a big issue with electric vehicles. And that the initial systems that we're piloting and then we're gonna eventually do an implementation of, talk to the chargers and the buses and relay that information from a service level perspective, help us understand the condition of the vehicles. Some insights into when the chargers are working, when they're not, when the bus is ready, so that they're being maximized and utilized. And that will eventually that'll lead to savings when we can use the electric buses more and not the diesels. So we're already seeing positive. Ray is nerding out over it and was very excited, all smiles in my office the other day, telling me about how cool he could peek in and see that what the charger was doing. And when we walked around, I noted that the chargers were all green lights, which was so kudos to you and the team and the maintenance team for keeping those up and running. As you all know, those were early issues, was having chargers go down. So we're getting there.
It's awesome. Well, and Josh, given that you guys are sort of the most kind of consequential and earliest adopters of this technology in the city, but we are seeing other city vehicles use it. I wonder, is there going to be sort of learnings and insight that you guys could then kind of disseminate in a memo to other city departments that also have electric vehicles?
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, the fleet director of fleet, who falls under TNES, we talked with him a lot.
Awesome.
And have been having conversations about, moving to electric vehicles and strategies surrounding that. It's one of these things that's so big and so exciting and so interesting, but also so complex. It seems to be so hard to get to, but anyway.
So with this, new technology, when might we see how it's working or some feedback? How it could support us and.
Ray, you want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Sort of how that's going to shake out?
Yeah, it will be at least some months. It's not yet some of the data and features we've never had access to before, so that takes some time for us to you still get access to figure out how to use it, figure out how to use it.
Got it.
It'll be
Lots of data there.
Mhm.
Maybe about that. So before we move on to planning, I just want to notate that the city is still working hard to finish out the fiscal year and the first couple months of this fiscal year working. We appreciate the hard work. That's a big lift and a lot going on. So we don't have the financials this month, but we will be bringing those back next month. So that's why I don't have that slide there, but we're all working together the best we can to get that squared away. So I will turn it over to you, Martin, to go over planning reports.
Believe if that's okay.
We have a microphone now.
Nice to see you all. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just have a few updates on the planning docket this evening. First, we've got our KPI dashboards, which are in your packet as well. As you recall, we have a series of dashboards in every month. We have 3 that we share externally. First of which is ridership. These are also available on our website, performance report section, and then also posted around our facility on the TV screen, so staff can see them as well and see how we do. Ridership, as you can see, is continuing to be strong. We did see the typical dip for July, which is the latest data we have, and that's to be expected with schools being out of session. In fact, we've got a lot of student riders. We have seen some preliminary numbers from August, and they have come back up to what we already seen the month prior. So good news there. They were still around that 15,000 average weekday boardings, and weekends, as you can see, have shot up quite a bit. Now well over 10,000 Saturday mornings and almost 10,000 Sunday mornings. Next slide, thank you. So this is the second dashboard is safety and service. This highlights credible events for 100,000 miles. Customer service index shows how we're good in terms of comments and accommodations and complaints. And then finally, the on-time performance. A couple of things to highlight here is just that our preventable events have been higher than expected over the last 4 months. That's something that our safety team is continuing to look into along with operations. And then our on-time performance has also been slightly lower. We try to be at 85% on-time performance. We've been just a hair below that for the last couple of months. That traces back to some service changes we made in May. We are working to update those and fix some of the schedule issues that we've seen out of those. I can talk about those in a second. So, and then lastly, we have a sustainability dashboard, which allows us to quantify some of the impact we're having on sustainability in the community. We can kind of see how many miles are being traveled by electric buses. We can see how many tons of CO carbon emissions are being reduced. Car trips removed. So we do some really good information and insight when we want to talk about the benefits that dash brings to the Alexandria community.
And these are all available on the website all the time. Just remind you all each month they're available.
So as I mentioned, we're looking to make some service improvements in October. The date is October 8th. We will make our service changes. The main change that we'll be making is our line 33 Sunday improvement that was approved by city council through the ad hoc process with a lot of advocacy from this group in the community. So we'll be increasing Sunday service on that route every 60 minutes, every 30 minutes. That's a route that goes through Delray and Alexandria and connects with the new Sunday Metro. So we're very excited to be able to have better service feeding that station on Sundays. And we also have some schedule adjustments that we're doing on lines 31, 36. We've had a lot of issues, especially on line 36 with schedule reliability. So we're trying to adjust those for better service reliability. So those will go into effect on Sunday, October 8th. Yeah. And then the last item, it's not on the slide for it, but I just want to highlight that we have our annual bus rodeo and company picnic coming up on October 1st. Hopefully you guys will have that on your calendar. You're cordially invited. I know we had a lot of folks out last year. It was a lot of fun. You see the drivers in their element, going through the cones and navigating all the obstacles. It's really impressive. And then we followed it up with our picnic with some great food, music, and the awards ceremony. So hopefully everyone will be able to make it out for that. I strongly encourage you to attend. Happy to take any questions on any of those.
The competition starts in the morning, right? Early.
Rodeo starts at 9 ish, and then the actual picnic's around noon.
Yeah. So you're welcome if you can't make the rodeo portion, you're welcome to come by a picnic at noon, grab some lunch. I'll take you through the course, show you how it's done by an expert. Everybody laughing. Still have my score sheet from last year. All right. That's it.
Thank you. All right, so our next, well, first of all, before we, just let me ask how folks thought tonight worked. This is a new room for us. Did you like it? It seems very comfortable, and I certainly want to follow the staff just to find out in terms of some of the financial logistics and how that worked. But this would be, I think, a place that we would want to come back to again. Hopefully the city was helpful in being able to work in getting this scheduled. But I see we have decided, so our October meeting is going to be at the Dash facility.
I just put that up there. It's your discretion. Beth has worked to secure the city facility as well, but October, it's not a public hearing meeting or anything like that. I figured we want those, try to have those meetings either at City Hall or here when you have the public.
Right, so that's, I know April would be typically our public hearing. October, though, if we go through the, often, and you and I were talking about this, and I don't know if we got more clarity from the city about when we go through the I call it an exercise, but if our budget was cut by X%, what we would, are we likely going to make that decision in October for what those reductions would be that we would send out? Because we often get a lot of public feedback on that, because those are often those percentages do require us to start looking at service. And so I did want to be, if we're going to do that in October, I wanted to be at a place where it would be easier for folks to make comment to us.
They haven't really published a formal budget calendar yet.
No, I mean, we're in the early processes right now. We're going through what's called the salary and benefits projections, where we figure out kind of what's the basic cost of current services for our current workforce, and then marrying that with what do we see as the economic outlook for our revenues to really get a sense of what's the gap that we're looking at right now. So there hasn't been any decision about what we might be faced. I mean, we know kind of behind the scenes, but no outward, what are we going to be requesting from departments like this house?
Okay, but timing wise, that's usually when it's happened for us.
So it's all in that ballpark. We do current services next, so we have the council retreat in early November.
Okay.
And so that late October, early November timeframe is when that starts.
Oh, so maybe November one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm fine. We're going to have the October meeting at the.
The next thing that's going to happen, actually, you're going to get a letter from the manager that goes to all the boards and commissions soliciting input.
For feedback, okay. Okay, so we'll have October at the Dash facility then, but you were saying, Josh, we were able to reserve City Hall just as a backup. for-
Yeah, we went ahead and made those reservations.
Okay, all right, but we'll plan October then to have at the Dash facility, but to me, this seemed to work well, and I'd love to come back here again, at some point, during the course of the year. Is there any other business to come before the board tonight? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Randy, second? Lord, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all.